Well, what if the very rules of business were never written for women, but you could learn how to win the game anyway? Today's guest is proof that you can. Catherine Lang Cline is a powerhouse in business and leadership. As the co-founder and longtime CEO of Portfolio Creative, she led her company to 6 consecutive years on the Inc. 5000 list, was named Columbia CEO's most admired CEO for 5 straight years, and earned countless awards celebrating her impact as an entrepreneur and thought leader. After successfully selling her company, Catherine now speaks to women navigating real world rules of business through her speaking, writing, and her book, The Rules of Game for Women in Business. For more than 3 decades of experience in marketing, leadership, and entrepreneurship, she's here to share how women can rise faster, lead smarter, and win bigger in business. I'm so excited to have you here, Catherine.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. As you know, especially just to talk a little bit about my journey in the hope that it can help at least one person out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And tell us a little bit, how did Portfolio Creative begin? What was that spark that made you believe that you were building something extraordinary?
Oh, that's very interesting way that you put that because I didn't realize that until a couple years in. But the spark of it was I was in marketing for about 15 years and freelance, worked for other companies, hire, let go, whatever. It was like a maybe average of like 3 years per company for a while there, just because I felt a little, I don't know, just not in the right place, I guess. And then I had this opportunity to freelance for a company, and that's where I found my business partner because she came to me and said, it would be really great if someone could just help me find marketing talent. I spent all of my time just looking for people. And I'm like, oh, well, that'd be kind of easy because I've worked for companies like that. And she's like, well, great. Would you want to do it? And for me, it was kind of like, I've done a lot of things and this could just be like another freelance opportunity, really. So let's give it a shot. And the caveat was, I said, well, I could do this for about 6 months and then I will not have any money. And we will have to decide to just get ourselves a job at that point. And 20 years later, it worked. But to answer your question, it was probably about 5 years before I realized we really had something because, um, and many of your audience may know that that 5 year mark is really like the test of if you can make it to 5 years, you really have something. It's starting to catch fire, and it's a great milestone just to kind of reflect and say, all right, people, I think understand what we're trying to do. They understand our purpose, and they're willing to stand behind us.
Absolutely, yeah. And you said that rules of business were never written for women. So, what
Yeah.
would you say is the first rule you had to rewrite to actually feel like you were winning?
Well, it was kind of like standing on the sidelines, if you will. I'll use a lot of sports terminology
Yeah.
because that's what the book has. It was standing on the sidelines, just looking at everybody who's playing the game and saying, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And or what can I do to kind of get in the room to get, to the right people? And I really saw how guys were doing it. And it seemed that they had it figured out and they had no, it was effortless for them. And, it was always um, am I wanted here sort of thing in the back of your mind because you do go into a lot of rooms and we were the only woman in there.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, how are they going to react to me? And I have had everything from somebody asking me, like, who I worked for and
Whose
things like that.
secretary are
Like, can you
you?
give me some coffee? It's just that sort of thing. And but that's just part of it, and I'm
Mhm.
like, I understand that this is the typical situation, but I'm not typical. And it was just really seeing how they did it, how they carried themselves, how they approached each other, what they talked about, how they kind of created a bond and how they got in the room. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna mirror that and just kind of see what happens. And oddly, it worked. You start becoming a fellow teammate, you start becoming more like that little sister that they want to help or something like that. And just kind of one of the guys, for lack of a better term. And that opened more and more opportunities.
Yeah. It's funny with my background. I started in nursing, which is pretty much female
Oh,
dominated.
yes.
And then I went to corporate world, which of course is very male dominated.
Hmm.
And there's such a different vibe between the two of them. And
Absolutely.
personally, I never felt looked down on. Like it was always kind of like you just kind of be in your energy, know what you're good at, ask questions for things you're not good at. But it's definitely a different vibe. I would
Absolutely.
attest to that as well.
Women kind of enter the game, in that, caring role, sharing role.
Mhm.
Let's all collaborate and be friends, sort of thing.
Mhm.
And guys enter as being a little more boastful, a little more, hard knocks, a little more just let's just get to business. And it is a switch in mentality for sure.
Yeah. Can you think of a challenge just being in that male dominated space? But what was a challenge you faced early on that shaped you into the leader you are today?
Oh gosh, I think it was just being relentless, letting them know that I was good at what I did.
Hmm.
And when you are in a meeting, for example, I ran into a lot of women that basically say, I just like to observe. And there's nothing wrong with observing because I do think it's really smart to look and see who's the one in charge, who's the one that's, likes to hog the ball.
Hmm.
Um, and just be kind of prepared to jump in when you're ready.
Hmm.
But the key kind of is to jump in at some point,
Yeah.
say something. And it could be asking somebody to expand on an idea or just say, what, I just, whatever it is, if somebody makes a statement, you know what, that's a great idea. You could just be that responsive role and not think you have to come up with the next great invention. But when you do have the next great invention,
Hmm.
definitely speak up and do it soon. And you can just say, this is maybe kind of a half-baked idea and I would love it for somebody to build on it. But what I'm kind of seeing is what we can do is this.
Hmm.
And then everybody just kind of piles on and likes to just kind of develop that idea. But getting credit early is super important. But if you had an idea and somebody else steals it and you did, because everything kind of, sometimes in meetings, everything kind of builds up to that idea, then somebody just says it out loud first. I would just say something like, what, great idea. I was thinking the exact same thing. And, you just kind of get your voice heard
Hmm.
and you're like, yeah, I'm here to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to listen first and
Hmm.
absorb and then definitely speak in, right? Like you mentioned, you can either listen and be invisible or you can listen and counter in with like the most insightful thing in the whole conversation, right?
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes your idea might nudge somebody else, but yeah,
Mhm.
doing nothing,
Yeah.
um, people aren't even know why you're there, or they won't remember that you're there. And that's the last thing you want to have. So it's like, if I'm in this, if they invited me here, I'm going to do something. And you just
Mhm.
have to kind of figure out how it is that you can contribute in a way that, makes sense at the time.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you were named Most Admired CEO 5 years in a row. What do you think truly earns admiration of your team or the community?
Well, the one thing that I heard repeatedly is how involved I am with the community, how I like to help others, especially women. One of the things that's mentioned in my book is how we all need to be cheerleaders for each other.
Mhm.
And mostly it's women because we do need that boost more often.
Mhm.
Um, because we doubt ourselves a lot or we don't think we're good enough and you're like, oh, come on, you can do it, you're great. And you sometimes will talk yourself down and somebody else will see you in a completely different light, and having those cheerleaders around you are absolutely huge. And
Mhm.
the other key element is to find people who are champions for you,
Mhm.
and those are the ones that help you get in the room. And one of my examples for that is, and I, going back to that CEO thing, once I had people helping me get me in the room, I started doing that for other people. I would do things like always attend and promote things for people, things that I believed in too, because, there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of great things. And so many people will just say, oh, you know what, that's really wonderful. But I'm like, you know what, you need to talk to this. I would use LinkedIn as a vehicle all the time, attend this event, see this person, congratulate people. And I think it is all about raising all the ships.
Mhm.
And I am, you know, very thrilled that people were able to see my effort towards that. I absolutely loved it because I love seeing that spark in people. So I didn't realize it resonated so well with others. So that was definitely a big part of it. And just being such a driver in the community with our spirit, because one of our values definitely was just getting the right people in the right seats, since it was a staffing company. I was finding more marketing people jobs, beyond myself. And it was just basking in the glow of knowing that we were helping people pay the rent versus how can we get the best markup on this? You know, it was like what works for the client, what works for the talent, and making that all work. So being that sort of partner with our clients and with the community really resonated with people, apparently.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's the
It
best way I can
obviously
describe
did.
it. I would love to hear what they would say, but that's how I at least interpret it from some feedback I got.
Yeah. And I know personally, I love to surround myself with people that are smarter than I am. But
Oh, yeah.
what what did you find was pivotal in building your team as you were growing the business?
Just exactly what you said, just hanging out with people that are smarter than you and really being respectful of their time and not asking them really of anything. There were certain situations because I had never, you know, grew a business
Mhm.
where I would talk to other people or hang around with other people and just kind of see what they did or ask them questions. Like, when this has this ever happened to you, sort of thing, and they would give you some feedback, and you were just very grateful. You know, like, I'm so glad I ran into you today. This
Mhm.
really helps me a lot. And I would have to say almost all the time people are willing to help you. They really they like to get that feel good too. So don't be afraid to ask and get involved with groups that have that higher level of education too. Like you're talking about just the people that have lived it and have done it and you know hard knocks, all of that. So big events where the players go, you know, make sure you're there and you go and you meet a few of them and shake their hand and in some cases, you know, that was it. I just wanted to introduce myself because I think you're awesome. And they're like, oh, well, thank you. And then you might submit the next event. And you're like, hi, remember me? And they're like, yeah, you thought I was awesome. And I'm like, well, you know what? You still are. You know, so even when meeting with people and trying to make those connections, you know, I tried to make it, you know, just come from a very appreciative place, a place of gratitude. You know, even like I said, just a chance of meeting someone and letting me introduce myself, I made it kind of a big deal because it was. I mean, who was I, you know, to
Mhm.
take up somebody's time, but it was very valuable to join groups that, you know, like NABO, which is National Association of Women Business Owners, my local chamber, a couple of the other chambers in the area, because that's where everybody goes. Women's Presidents Organization is another one that is fantastic, and all of those women in those groups in particular like I said, multi-million dollar companies and have the same problems you do with people, with clients, with money, with all of that, but they have that experience, or they can at least help you collaborate, ideate, or connect you to somebody who can help you, which is
Right.
also really great. And with Chambers of Commerce having a lot of activity there too, that goes back to that whole community aspect, which I think you really have to earn the respect, to get people to know you, than to get people to recommend you to other people.
Mhm. Yeah, and being that ultimate connector, like you were mentioning,
Yes,
making a
yes,
big deal about, introducing yourself, connecting with people, and remembering people as best you can.
exactly. Best you
Yeah.
can. That's the caveat
I
to that.
remember working for a CEO, and he remembered everybody, and I'm like,
Isn't that
he
awesome?
remembered your children's names, and I'm like, my God, you're like for me. As soon as I talk to someone, I go back and I take notes. I'm like, the only way I remember it is if I like write it down and be
It's
intentional about it. But
yes,
he was on it. It used to blow my
that's
mind.
awesome. That's a great gift to
Yes,
have.
it is. It is. And you sold your company as you were
Yes.
planning to exit your company. Can you talk to me a bit about how that journey was? Like, did you plan that early on, or did that just kind of come into your pathway?
I think like a lot of people, you automatically think that the business is the retirement plan.
Mhm.
And when you are done, you're going to just sell it for just some big bag of money, and then that's going to be easy.
Mhm.
And what I learned along the way and early on is that service industries and a lot of companies don't necessarily get you to the beach.
Mhm.
And I started to save money along the way. And granted, you know, we still invested in the company, but we paid ourselves and we paid ourselves well. And I think sometimes when people own a business, they're like, if money is short, I guess I'm not paying myself this week. The one thing that I stood firm in was, no, we will pay ourselves and we'll just
Mhm.
have to figure it out because if this is a functioning company, we should be able to pay ourselves
Mhm.
and all of our people and nobody, no, you know, asking for favors or things like that. If that would ever occur, then that tells me there's a bigger problem and we would have to figure it out.
Mhm.
And if we can't afford the people, then, you know, there would be times where we would have to lay people off. It was just reality. And it is hard to do that. But it was something that I was really laser focused on. This has to work and this has to fulfill my life. And what I ended up doing is, every year, if we had, a good year, which we didn't always have, but we had a lot of them, save the money, save the money, save the money. I felt that if I could plan for my retirement along the way, I would not have to worry about it when I sold my company.
Hmm.
It would just be bonus money. And that's kind of exactly how it worked out, is I got to the point where, I was just not feeling it anymore, which is a crazy thing to say when your company's doing well. But I was like, I feel I need to do something else. And I'm close to retirement. Let's just see if somebody would like to buy it. And we were lucky enough to have somebody that did that. So I had the money for retirement plus the money that I made to sell the business, which again, kind of came around where I thought it would be. Not
Hmm.
enough to retire per se, but like for as long as I wanted to. I
Of
mean, you
course,
can
yeah.
still retire on, some decent money, but I didn't want my lifestyle to change that much either. So yeah, it was very calculated on how I did it, and I did it early on, not knowing when I was going to be done with it, but just knowing that it wasn't going to probably be enough as I wanted when I was done.
Hmm. For sure. And I know a lot of, especially women business owners, struggle with having their face as the business and potentially having something to sell later on. What would you
Yes.
say to them, or what would you guide them in with that?
As soon as you're ready, start to have your team run the company.
Mhm.
It was about a year process for me to slowly let go of all the meetings, all the one-on-ones with clients, all the one-on-ones with my employees for that matter, and had managers handle things and then report to me. If there was something that was an issue, I turned it to like, well, this is your team. You
Mhm.
know what the goals are, meet the goals. If there's a problem, you know how to get a hold of me. And when it came time to sell the business, I could easily say, you don't need me here. These people run it and I will hang around for a short period of time. I did not wish to be in some handcuffed position for like 2 years after I sold. I did not like the idea of confusion of who's running this company sort of thing. So I said they can do it, and I'll hang around to answer questions and make sure all the clients are happy. But it can work without me.
Mhm.
So it's letting go not only of owning everything, even though you're the owner, giving those opportunities to other people to grow, which ended up being so rewarding. It's like I'm going to give this to you now, and you get to make the decisions. And they were great at it, So you have to get the right people too. But it worked out in that regard because, like I said, I was just really setting it up to succeed without me in it.
I love that. And ultimately, you become the escalation point and you're working your way out of a job,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And then you did a good job.
Hmm. Absolutely. I
Because
know I,
ultimately, like you get to a certain point where you want to be less involved with the company anyway, because you've worked really hard and you want to take those vacations. You want to be there for your family. You want to, do the things that you want to do. And if you are so shackled to it, it will never happen. So you could easily say if you have even if you want to hang around, if the team can help run the company to the level that you want, you can be like, I'm going to be gone for a month and you guys
Mhm.
got this. Here's one person's going to have my phone number. And if you need it, then, you can make the call. But that's kind of what the perks of ownership are, is to kind of have a better life and not to almost work harder than everybody else that's there.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I always view that as a mark of a great leader is if your team can work without you, right? Like
Hmm.
you don't need to be in the day to day and you can step away and have that freedom and flexibility to do so.
100%.
Yeah. So after selling your company, you shifted into helping other women rise. And what would you say was the biggest realization that pushed you into that next chapter?
I started well, during when I owned the company too, I did do some mentoring and I was doing a little more after I sold just to kind of, have a purpose to wake up because you are adjusting to this whole new life now. And I found myself repeating a lot of things when I would coach people on some things. And I'm like, this would be much easier if I just wrote a book about this or something. So I decided that rather than keep piling on more and more clients because that was not the life I wanted either, to work 24/7 again,
Right.
is to write a book with everything that I learned along the way with the hopes that it can save them some time and get to where they want to go. And that's a little bit of a definition, an individual definition of where you want to go. Because is it to spend more time with my family? Is it to rule the world? Is it to have, my company in 5 countries? It's definitely your decision of how you do that. But in the book are some of the ways and some of the scripts that I use, essentially, what I would say when I was in a meeting situation, networking situation, or whatever, because I think it's one thing to tell people you're a badass bitch and you go in there and you just tell them what you know. And it was not, it's, I don't, that I didn't think is an effective way because you want to make friends, essentially.
Yeah.
People will work with people they like. And if you're coming in and they're not excited to see you for some reason, then you're doing it wrong. So I have not only in the book, the things that I did, but the things that I said, because there might be some situations where, I really want to meet the CEO. And I think because I could do, I would love to work with them, for example. That if that person is a CEO and you're a CEO, for example, there's no reason why you can't go over and introduce yourself as a
Oh, yeah.
CEO of your own company to meet the CEO of that company. And, some of the things I would say is, what, I just want to come over and introduce myself and congratulate you for what you've done in the community. And, definitely know what they've done. For one, they may have built a great business or they may be involved with some charity or something like that. And just kind of, work that into the conversation and just, you give them an automatic exit too, because they might be like, I don't know, you don't want to talk to you. But you then also say too, I didn't want to take a lot of a lot of your time. I really appreciate, the time that you've given me. And if you ever, well, I guess when I would work the cell in a little bit later, maybe the second meeting. But you could just tell them, I don't know if you're familiar with my company. This is what we do. Sometimes they would immediately shut you down and just say, well, we don't need that. And it's like, that's okay. You don't have to. But if you know of anyone, that'd be great too.
Yeah.
But then just drag it back to, but all I wanted really was to come over and say hi
Right.
or to say congratulations if it's an award thing, especially. But really kind of make it loose enough where they have an out in a way and they don't feel pressure by you because we've all been in situations where someone just immediately walks up, shoves their hand in your face and wants to sell you something.
Mhm.
It's the key really is to build those relationships, those friendships. I don't want anything right now. I may have an ask later, but
Right.
right now I don't. And sometimes you can just say too, if you ever need help, let me know. How great for someone to offer help without you even asking for it. So it's definitely a change in the mentality of how you should just kind of go in there and do it. And like I said, the exact words that I said in many of those things are written out because I didn't want to assume or
Mhm.
give people a pep talk, if you will. And then they're like, okay, I'm in the room and I have no idea what to say.
Yeah.
Here's something.
Yeah.
And it worked for me.
Yeah, totally. And it's all about how you make them feel, right? Like there's so much truth
Yes.
to they don't remember what you say.
It's
They
how to, yeah.
remember if you're pitchy, salesy, pushy, all that, or if you're like intentional, genuine, authentic relationship. Like those are two totally different things.
Yeah, and sometimes I would almost see that as a bit of a challenge too. It's like if
Yeah.
I if I felt like in some way that they were pushing back a lot, I would try and say something that I thought would, um, I don't know, just make them feel more comfortable, make
Mhm.
them feel, like I'm
Get their guard
not,
down.
I don't want anything. Yeah, because
Mhm.
it's hard. It's hard to meet people, and it's hard to make friends, and it's hard to build relationships. But if you just tell people yeah, I'm happy you're here, and or in some cases, I'm excited you're here, and it works really great.
Yeah. And on a more, we'll say personal level, like as you're growing your business, as you're rising to success, right, and all that you've done, how did you focus on personal relationships, on friendships, like outside of business, right? What was that balance for you?
That is a great question because I tend to make friends as I go. Um, and also, I have had to let go of some relationships that weren't feeding me, if
Mhm.
you understand my meaning
Mhm.
there. Um, we all have a friend group, for example, maybe in high school, we'll say that, they kind of serve their purpose for that time and then you move on. But there's always some people that you tend to drag along too. I have one or two friends that I've had for probably like 30, 40 years, but
Mhm.
it's not many. It's the ones that are always there for me. It's the ones that I'm always there for them because they are just great people. But the rest I just kind of pick up along the way. And the time that I make for that is I tend to try and get creative with that. And if I meet someone at an event that maybe I haven't spoken to a while, and I do consider them a friend, let's plan a lunch, let's plan a breakfast. The key to that was mostly, I don't like doing necessarily dinner and drinks and things like that because the day's over. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's a work thing, I like it in the work hours, and then reserve that evening time for my family and for me to
Right.
recharge. There are definitely events that you go to at night because it's the big event and you have to go. But I try to be, I would go to those, let's just say, but I wouldn't like plan. Um, other things around, like work things around that. That is the time for friends and family and things like that. So just really being, adamant about that is huge. And I know a lot of people feel that, they could be missing out on that big client or whatever because they can't do that evening event or whatever. They have to do childcare or go to the soccer game. What I would always tell people, clients, people I worked with, is that I have a meeting then
Mhm.
and I can't go, or we have
Right.
to reschedule that. And people are sometimes we're afraid to say, I got to go because that's what the client wants to meet. The client doesn't have to meet at that time. There is
Yeah.
usually another time. If they really need you, want you, um, we can do this at a different time. But I would always just say I had a meeting to kind of offer some balance and put some guardrails on my day. But it is especially, and also too, I want people to really think as well is that there are going to be times in your life where you are just gas is on all the way. Your foot is, down to the floor. And some of those friendships fall away because of neglect or what have you. And I will fully admit that that has probably happened for me. But again, the ones that are the great ones, you may not have talked to somebody in 2 years, but when you get together, it's like you were never apart. Those are the keepers and the ones worth making time for. Um, but yeah, it's to your comfort level too, I guess, at a certain point. Some people, I think, put so much weight on friendships and wanting to be liked that it starts being a little bit of a detriment to their growth. But if these people are 100% behind you, they will let you grow and not stifle you. They'll understand, and you will understand when they're in that situation too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And your friendships evolve over time. Like I remember when my kids
Absolutely.
were young, I was, closer with people with young kids. As you get
That's a
older, you
great
get
example.
divorced, right? Like it evolves over time and it needs to be what fits in your life and what
Exactly.
aligns with you at that point in your
And
world.
just be really okay with it. Just be
Hmm.
really okay with it.
Yeah. And I know many women say they feel underseen or undervalued in business. What's one thing you wish every woman would do differently to be recognized as a leader?
Just kind of go with the attitude that I am here to play. I am a leader, and I'm not going to let them take that from me.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a certain point where we push, but then somebody likes to knock us down a little bit. That's part of the game. And you just get up and you keep going. And when they know that you're relentless, that when you care that much about something, that's when you start really getting traction.
Mhm.
And I think that, like I said, I've run into, I mean, I've just heard so many different things. Like, for example, some women are wanting to control the size of their growth because they're like, if this gets too big, then I won't have time for my family. I won't have time for this. And I was told once, if you grow that big, you can pay people to clean your house and you can pay
Mhm.
people to watch your kids as needed. And you don't need to worry so much. You don't shouldn't let that be your reason to not want to grow. Some feel that like, I have to, pay my dues and put my time in. And there's a little bit of truth to that. There's some people that are super rigid with that. But I am like, well, why? If I'm ready now, then why? So yeah, it's just, it's your own mindset that either stops you or keeps you going. And I still run into that today, even though you listed some of the awards, but it's just like, can I do this? And I'm like, there's no reason not to. And what if I try? If I try and I fail, I learn something.
Mhm.
But if I try and it works,
Right.
then
And if I
that
don't
was
try, it's
great.
never going to work.
Yeah, and we have to stop worrying about failure, I guess, or something not working. Women are fantastic with problem solving.
Mhm.
So if we can't go into this window, let's walk around the building and see if there's a door open somewhere. And okay, that's locked. So how else can we get in? Well, there's a brick right here. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll just get in that way. Um, so yeah, just don't be so timid to, just you got nothing to lose. Give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your book, what's one rule that surprises people the most, and why do you feel it's really important for people to know?
Oh, that is a great question. I would have to say, well, there's a couple things, but I think probably the one that's the most is just how much we don't lean into our cheerleaders and our champions.
Mhm.
There are always people around you that see that you're ready for something. These are your champions, and an example I have is that I just did join the Chamber of Commerce, and there was this woman I knew, and she knew me, and she walked up to me and said, "You are going to be on the Small Business Council. I put your name in," and I'm like,
Thanks.
I don't know. And she's like, "You're doing it. Your name's in. They're gonna call you." And then just kind of walked away. And I was like, "Oh, okay, okay." She knew I was ready, but I
Yeah.
was doubting it. And I think sometimes people just say, "Oh no, I don't have the time," or "It's that's
Mhm.
I can't do it. I don't think they want me." Don't just get over that. Just get over that,
Mhm.
and just say, if they see something in me, I'm ready, and go and try it. And you may again, look a little silly when you get there. But what happened when I did get there, she said, "I am rolling off as chair of this council, and I am telling them that you're going to do it." And
Mhm.
I was like, okay. Okay. But again, she saw something in me that I was not ready to see. But I got to tell
Mhm.
you, I had a blast. I had a blast doing both of those things. And then I eventually got to the big board for the chamber. And that's where I got to meet all the, Fortune 500 people was on that board. So if I had not, just believed her when I
Mhm.
said I was ready, it would not happen. So I think when people read that part, they start thinking about all the people that helped them or did something, were the catalyst in some way to
Mhm.
get them where they needed to be. And because of that, anytime that there is a board opening or somebody asks me and maybe I don't want to do it, I'll say, "You know what, I won't do it. I don't have the time for that, or maybe I don't have the passion for it."
Mhm.
I will say, but I can recommend somebody to you, and I will, grab somebody else and have them that they might not have any awareness of, and let them be on that committee or that board. Because it is about giving those opportunities for others and not just necessarily being all up for yourself. But it's a lot of give back, and it'll make you feel fantastic, which is a big part of why I do it.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of two things actually. Like when I was coming up through corporate, there was a position that was open and it was a management position before I was in management. And they came to me and said, "Do you want it?" And I'm like, "No,
It
thanks,
sounds
but
scary.
I really don't." But, and then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, they obviously, like you said, see something in me that I don't see. I'm like, okay, I'll give it
I'll
a
just
shot.
interview and I'll see what happens. I'll let them decide,
And it was
why
a
not?
total train wreck that I was being handed, and I knew that. And it was for a massive corporation and, client facing the whole bit. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And rocked it, turned it around, in a couple months, it was like a total transformation. But
Perfect.
you
Perfect
gotta
example.
go with it when people see something in you, then acknowledge that and roll with it,
Exactly.
right? You never know where it's going to
Exactly. It's
take
like, all
you.
right, here we
Yeah.
go.
And I had a client recently tell me, separate story, but of he wrote a book. He went viral with he had did like 4 TEDx talks and went viral with them. And in his book, he mentioned not every, but very specific people along his way, like the coffee shop where he had the idea that it came to them, and like had all these mentions in his book that they didn't even know they were going to be in his book. So when his book came out and his TED Talk came out, it's like, here, I talked about you. And then
Yeah.
those people shared it with their whole network, and it catapulted him in visibility because he took the time to mention people that you wouldn't normally mention in your
Right.
journey and really elevate them up. And, people really take that to heart and it means a lot to them.
Absolutely. And it is so easy too. It takes like
Mhm.
2 seconds in some cases. But you're really changing someone else's life in some cases, which is exactly what you just said.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And you've achieved incredible success, but what does winning look like for you now, and how has that definition changed over time?
Oh, winning for me when I was in marketing was just getting that corner office in the advertising agency. And in hindsight, I was like, oh, I would have been so miserable. So I'm kind of glad that I did stumble along the way in some cases to get to where I needed to go. It is essentially getting to a place where you feel comfortable and happy, where you feel financially secure, because that is a lot of stress. And if you are also not working in a place that is your zone of genius or the place that gives you joy in some way, it will just suck the life out of you. So if you can live in a place where you are just comfortable and happy, and that could be at any level. I don't necessarily believe that you have to kind of always have to chase that, world domination mindset. But for some people, it might make them happy. And it's evolved in a passion too of where I have something, a thing or a service that I know is going to help people. I mean, yeah, let it just take over the world because wouldn't that be an awesome thing? But for the most part, I did focus it as starting as what is it that I need to get my life together. And then I started blossoming that into other people. How can I help others get to where they need to go? And all of that has just been very rewarding. And to know that you're leaving a mark on the world where you have helped somebody else is huge. We all like to think that, when we leave this planet that we'll be remembered in some way. If you are remembered as a kind person and somebody who is giving, and it's kind of sometimes fun, if you are reading like obituaries of people, and some people are so this person, or like you would see posts maybe in social media and people would just gush, this person was the best person ever. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what an amazing way to leave this planet. And then there's some where they just list, their family. Just like,
Yeah.
wow. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about just leaving your mark in some way, some big or small way too, that is um like I said, that just kind of changes something, someone. And I addressed that a little bit in the last part of my book and how you create your legendary status. And
Mhm.
your legendary status could be anything. You have to kind of define it. For me, it could be, the awards. My husband, for example, has his name on a wall at his university as an
Oh,
honored alumni.
yeah.
So it's like, and of course I'm like, well, I want my name on a wall.
I want a whole building.
But it's stuff like that. What is it that, is your mark that people will just know you by? And some, it's just like this person was so giving, and they just they think about you and they smile. Oh my God. I mean, how amazing is that? And then, like I said, for some, that's more. It's like, just really focus on something and then figure out how to get there too. For
Yeah.
me, I was like, how do we get on the, ink list, And oh, okay, we have this much growth. Well, let's just apply and
Let's
see
do
what
it.
happens. And lo and behold, we did it. So yeah, it's just kind of taking crazy little risks, maybe an occasional bigger one, but yeah, just figuring out, where your place is and how you can kind of shift the planet a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. And I'm just curious, if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that they are pretty much capable of anything, and they would be really, really surprised. I think about just my life story and where I started and where I ended up. I would have never have imagined this for myself. Like I said, I was just very much of that art kid. And if I didn't really know what my definition of success was. Like I said, it was maybe just that like that corner office sort of thing. But I've been able to achieve a lot of things just because I tried it. And I don't want people to be afraid to try things. And the boundaries are only limited by the own voices in our head. And if we can just say, what, I know, for example, I know I failed 10 times, but I made this could be the one, and it's not like a high investment, I don't want people to get like horribly in debt or something like that, but it's just little things too that kind of, I'm going to go and meet that person. I'm going to write that letter. I'm going to send an email to this company and just let them know that I think they're awesome and I would either like to work for them or with them or something. And if that doesn't work, then who do you know that works there? And try going in that way. That's the back door that maybe you can get in. But there's no reason to not chase something that's really awesome that you don't think you either deserve or that you think you could obtain. It's really worth just trying to figure it out and being a little relentless and knowing that you're really more than what you started out with. Kind of going back to that high school thing, you were only capable of so much in high school, and then you went to college, and then you were capable of so much more, and then you got your first job, and then you were capable of even more. Just let that wheel keep rolling, and everything that you've learned all the time has led to this moment. And now what's the next step? And just look at really big ones too, big ones and small, but small ones lead to the big ones too. So always keep that in mind.
For sure. Yeah, no, they keep building on each other and but they're not going to if you don't give it a shot.
Exactly. Exactly.
And where can people find you online and where can they get your book?
Well, it's very simple to find me online. It's Catherine Lang Cline. com. And there is a link there to get my book for Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but it is available at Books A Million and a couple other places as well. But I would be overjoyed if someone in your audience would pick it up. And there's funny parts and there's serious parts and but it's super simple and conversational, kind of like we had today, about just how to, get to where you want to go and maybe get through a few things that might be blocking you. I also really recommend it for maybe people that are starting out in business as well. It definitely applies to everyone, but it might give some people a head start as far as if you're very young and junior and green and how do I get in the room. But there are many women out there that just get stuck. I'm really surprised at how many women that I know that I think are rock stars that either are contacting me and saying, you nailed it,
Mhm.
this is great, or I learned something here that I had not thought about. And sometimes it's as simple as like the network. It's like, you've been networking forever. What tip could you possibly get from me? And then she's like, yeah, I do, but I never thought about it that way. So I'm hoping, like I said, that's a little bit of the mark that I get to leave. I got all this experience. I did a lot of, digging in and growing. And if I could give somebody just a little bit of a lift up, it's almost like mentoring to a lot of people versus just, one or two at a time. So I'm hoping that people get it and it resonates and does something, makes a big change for them.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to grab it too and go through it myself. We'll have the link on the page so people can grab it too. And thank you, Catherine, so much for being here today. This was so much fun chatting with you.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me on the next episode of The Seven Figure Builder, and I will see you there.